Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Brian Barber. Once again, I see you have found your way into the fox den and awoken me for another Dogman expedition. Absolutely delicious. I could sit here and feed all night. Yet, it is time once again for Bigfoot's barbershop, Starfox, and the Midnight Society to take a walk into the darkness known as the Dogman.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, welcome back once again to the late night fire as we sit around and burn the timber and read some more chapters from the Midnight Society book. It is always excellent to find that somehow Brian Barber and Bigfoot's Barbershop always do manage to make their way through the dense, dark, and foggy forest that is infested with werewolves and dogmen to once again sit down with us. How you doing tonight, my friend?
We are doing pretty darn good. Been a busy couple day for the two of us. Got to have a little fun last night. I got to, prove that I am in training. So does it help when you log off your own live cast by accident?
I'm not really a huge gamer, but I play with some of my buddies here or there, like I said, and that is a terminology that they would use as a noob. You noob. But it's honestly a mistake anybody can make, dude, so I wouldn't really lose any sort of sleep over that by any means. But yeah, to my audience that isn't up to date on that, yeah, every Saturday night at 8:30 Eastern time, Stories for Bedtime, we link up, yes, Brian Barber, aka Bigfoot's Barbershop, and yours truly, Starfox, sit down and talk about all kinds of interesting things. If it's historical based and it has some sort of scientific evidence, I'm going to be there speaking about it. You will still always catch all your Dogman stuff here. But throughout my existence, loving to learn, my brain is like a sponge, and I just love to intake knowledge. So just recently, for example, on the episode where we sat down and talked about some really cool things, I've known about both of those for quite a long time, but again, it's just knowledge that was stuck in my brain. So if anyone wants to hear about some cool things that are occurring, then definitely check us out over there for sure. Brian, what else you been up to, dude?
Well, we did a little bit I haven't heard anybody back from everybody yet. And a game we were talking about that is more or less based in reality, what the hunting simulation is, and they bring up, I believe it was a Werehyena or a Dogman hyena type monster in the hunt, wasn't it?
Yes, as we like to call the Hyenabeast. And after we had spoken about that, you came at me with some pretty cool stuff that you actually had got a chance to dive into because I did send you that video. So before we dive some more into the Hyena, I'd like to know your opinion on after watching that and just doing a little bit of research. Where do you stand on that?
My stance is either someone on that creative team or a family of that creative or someone in that creative team had an experience somewhere. There was just too much detail for a company known more for their reality simulations than being a fantasy-based company. So after watching the video you sent, definitely somebody on that team or news that team had an experience that they decided to put into the game. So, and the companies, that team is dissolved, but they are family. So I'm trying to find a way to reach out, through either trying to find them on Facebook or Instagram or something and reach out and find out and see if they are willing to talk about where that concept came from.
Let's go. Or as Mr. Tom Brady used to like to say, I'm a Bruins guy, but of course, Brady, let's go. I'm from New England. Let's effing go, baby, and keep us updated for sure, dude.
Yeah, definitely, because that's to do that out of nowhere in a simulation. That's crazy. To me, that's kind of a risky thing because now you're losing your status as being the most authentic experience.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's so interesting, man. And also another Brady reference. Yo, he played for your Wolverines, man, too. So that's always a thing that being in Michigan, you should be proud of too, dude.
Oh yeah. Yep. And when he went to New England, I was so happy, but it was a shame that he sat behind Drew Bledsoe of all people for so long.
That's so funny. That's great stuff.
And they get to the Super Bowl, what was it, 4 times? Would they go 0-4?
Why
Tom's
you gotta
first
bring
Super
this
Bowl there,
up?
bang.
Why you gotta say this, man?
No. I was banging on Bledsoe and praising Tom because Tom got the job done.
You're just bringing up nightmares of my season so far, though, dude. So it's brutal.
To be honest, I don't know how they're doing. I haven't watched it. First football I caught was today while helping a guy with a TV, and our Lions are 9-1 or something, and they were beating Jacksonville 46-6, and it was in the third quarter still.
Yeah, that was some nightmare fuel for the Jags for sure. And before we dive into tonight, we have 3 wins on the season, man. So yeah, we are at the bottom of the barrel.
Rebuild. That's what you're doing.
For 4 years now, yeah, give or take.
Well, if you want to do it right, you can't rush it.
No, for sure.
Or maybe rushing, not rushing, it's the problem. Maybe they shouldn't rush.
I'm just in a nightmare for New England sports at the moment. The Bruins are abysmal. The Patriots are abysmal. And I don't really care about basketball or baseball. So yeah, it happens. But tonight, though, what's interesting about that game, too, man, is at the beginning, correct me if I'm wrong, they're in Africa. Ooh, okay, interesting. And we are going to be talking about tonight how in Africa there is no werewolves, okay? It's Werehyenas and Hyenabeasts and all this interesting stuff. And you have some pretty cool information about that topic that I'd like to hear your thoughts on because the hyena, again, is just something that we all need to look at. I mean, they are pretty much the most dominant predator almost globally on land or in water, like I told you earlier. I mean, there is now evidence that these hyenas legit were jumping in the water and hunting dolphins in prehistoric times. What the heck? There's evidence that the males that are lower in the pack, because it is run by females, they are the most malnourished. Well, they have been seen with injuries that any other known animal would have been unalived from, yet they nourish themselves back to health. They have a 90% success ratio while they hunt. They are in packs that have been seen to be up to 100 and plus, okay? And they are immune to anthrax, to rabies, to a lot of venom and other stuff. They don't get sick because of the acidic level in their stomach. I mean, what else do we want from a predator here? Don't get me wrong. I mean, bears and every predator is, unbelievable, but bears don't survive these huge devastating wounds. Tigers don't. They don't survive rabies and anthrax, and well, the hyena does. So interesting stuff, man. And I'm going to toss you the mic, dude.
Yeah, when I hadn't heard of a Werehyena, and when you had some things to skim over, it was pretty cool because it looked like there's 3 or 4 different versions of it depending on your locale, which was in Africa. So it would look at Somalia. It was basically just anyway it translated to, I'm going to butcher it, Kori Ismari, one who rubs himself with a stick. If he did that repeatedly with the stick, he would transform, and then at night, and then he could turn around and do the same thing to return to human during the day, where in Ethiopia, it's more like a trait that's passed down. If you happen to be a blacksmith, you're considered to be a wizard or sorcerer, and you were the one who was going to be transforming into a werehyena. So it was mainly blacksmiths for some reason. I don't know how they would do that because, back then, I guess you pretty much did your family trait. Your families were known for one business, I guess, right?
That's great stuff, man. And I want you to keep on rolling after, because you had told me a ton of other information about some of the depictions and what they were doing. And yeah, for the most part, it seems to be throughout history. I mean, whether it was Rome or medieval times, yeah, a lot of families would stick with a trait that was something that they excelled in. So yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, so they went from blacksmiths, and then also in Ethiopia specifically, that they were actually believed to be robbing graves at midnight, and they also get referred to as a Buddha. They're also known to be cannibalistic. So it doesn't sound like they were maybe the pack we know, or maybe they're just caught by the sick. That's how a lot of animals, if you're sick in the group, something's going to happen to you. Then what they were thought to be is either really bizarre, because it was either a human born who could transform into a werehyena, or the fact that it could be just the cleverly disguised hyena who perceives to be as a human during the day. So you've got the big bad wolf during the day just creeping around and looking and checking out the sheep that he's going to take out for the midnight day when he decides to reveal his true form. I mean, you could be standing on the subway next to the werehyena and never even know it.
Wow, that is straight up gnarly right there. And I mean, hyenas have been known to be cannibalistic as well. If you're from another pride, then yeah, and they don't want you in there, they consume you. Sure, that's not really something that's so far-fetched. And animals and predators, I mean, snakes, I believe it's the king cobra. The majority of their food is other snakes. And I watched one. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. And Miller Wilson, I'm a huge fan of. He goes all around and deals with really cool stuff. He's from Australia, and I advise anyone, if you like to check out stuff like that, he's a survivalist as well and a huge animal advocate, and runs something that helps koalas, and kid's a legend. Either way, he was showing this really large king cobra that was consuming a very large spitting cobra. And like you said, that's just what they do. So that's really, not that far-fetched. But what I find to be extremely interesting, too, is you touched base when we were speaking about how they could basically mimic themselves more or less by putting on clothing and keeping themselves at a distance and just trying to more or less depict themselves as humans to lure people in.
Yeah, so like I said, they're known to be a hyena actually cleverly disguised as a human being, walking around, and then when the sun goes down, then they reveal their true form, and they're able to disguise themselves, become the morning again. So it's almost like they have some sort of transformation or shape-shifting ability. And the intellect, like you said, you're going to have to hide among the humans. You're going to have to dress like the humans and walk like them. Probably talk a little bit. All coming from the brain of a hyena. So
Wow, that is so cool and so interesting, but terrifying as well. And it's honestly not that hard to think for a second, though. I mean, if you had a large hood on or cloak or something that's coming down past your hands, and then you have some sort of something that's covering, your feet, and this hood's pulled over your face, or maybe you have something else that's kind of covering your face as well, and people think you might be a mute, but you could easily still sit there and act like you're a tradesman and then wait and pick off people. I mean, it's not really that hard to think of that occurring if something is considered intellectual. And I mean, I'm a big advocate for the cynocephali and such, that we're extremely intelligent, and it seems to be that, well, these hyena beasts are falling into that category of being maybe a version of the cynocephali that seem to be potentially ancient as well. And what just blows my mind is, again, you have another culture speaking of some sort of bipedal, I mean, hyenas aren't canines, but something that resembles a canine, and it's just intriguing.
yeah, I mean, because the odds of communication back then, I mean, to even make generation to generation is pretty incredible, let alone continent to continent, and all have something very similar in their depiction of it. How does, talking about the, transformation or disguising and bipedal, especially the bipedal part, hyena, probably over in North America, they don't know what hyenas are. They just hear a name, they haven't seen one. So their best frame of reference could be a dog or a wolf. So maybe that's where the bipedal hyena to the North America, they visualize a were dog instead of a were hyena.
Yeah, it's really, again, intriguing. And there's just a lot of references and such to it. I mean, sure, there isn't necessarily stuff that you and I know of in front of us right now that we can put our hands onto and, let's say, read these books, but the information's out there. And I mean, these cultures, again, are mentioning that. And it isn't necessarily the same as, say, skinwalkers and werewolves, but there are, things that need to occur to, cause these transformations. And it doesn't sound like these beings, if they are cynocephali based, then they're not transforming. But if they are something like a witch doctor or a witch woman, or something along the lines of that, and they are doing these transformations, well, it doesn't seem like they are friendly by any means. And I wouldn't even put the cynocephali into a category of being friendly. I mean, Alexander the Great fought with them and against them. They seem to be a culture that did what was the best for them. It doesn't matter. So one time, teaming up with the Romans apparently was in their interest, but other times it wasn't, because he had to fight against them. So they didn't really seem to have the same sort of what we as humans have for quote unquote values of this or that is considered good or evil. I don't think they care about that. So, but with the cynocephali, like I said, they kind of had that attitude, but it seems like every sort of skinwalker and werewolf or werehyena is definitely on the evil side. I mean, there isn't really anything to support goodness about that. And what do you feel?
Yeah, it doesn't sound, I mean, you're talking about robbing graves and consuming human flesh at night, and So that, I mean, especially digging up graves, that's never really a good sign that somebody wants to be friendly. Or the fact that when they look at you, you're a possible snack if they couldn't find anything else that night. But, you know, what's interesting is the fact that they all reference the same type of animal. The only thing difference is the history behind it. You know, they all describe something very similar, but they just had like an explanation. Like, for some reason, it's only a blacksmith. And why is it just a blacksmith? You know, but the animal's the same. You know, and even rubbing with a stick, they don't say what they're rubbing with. Maybe they're trying to pull a hide up or something in order to get that partial thing like a skinwalker.
Exactly. That's what I was saying about how most likely, unless you are really in with the culture, you're not going to understand or get that type of information. So Westerners, we like to write everything down and share it all around. Well, a lot of cultures might write things down, but they don't necessarily want others to depict it in a way that it's not meant to be depicted and give a stereotype. Meaning, the reason the indigenous cultures globally, especially here in North America, do not pass on their traditions by writing it down, only oral, is because numerous times their traditional aspects were depicted when written down in a different way than it actually was supposed to be, causing more negative stereotypes about their cultures. So when it comes to werewolves and such, well, again, it's all out there. I mean, there's a ton of supposed information and documentation and all this, etc. And people talking about how wearing the pelt and supposed rituals you can find and all this. But when it comes to, well, the Werehyena and things such as that, well, that culture, same thing with the indigenous culture with the skinwalkers and stuff, there's information, but again, unless you know somebody within the indigenous culture that can turn themselves or knows how to become a skinwalker, there isn't information out there how to become that. Whereas, like I said, who knows if any of this Google is just Google, but type in how to become a werewolf. You can drink from the wolf's paw, do this on midnight, etc. But again, when you try to look up stuff like that about werehyenas and the Hyenabeasts and skinwalkers, it's not there. And that makes it even more mysterious, because unless you and I could sit down with a medicine man or a woman in an indigenous culture, whether here or over in Africa and such, I don't know if we're ever going to get a true answer to that, man. How do you feel?
I don't think we'll ever get the true answer, but it makes me wonder why, just like being a werewolf, how to transform, there isn't a lot more false information out there how to do it. You know what I mean? Somebody ran with the fact that, oh, you can become a werehyena by doing this and this. Maybe it's just because werewolf is more mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, that it's definitely interesting for sure. And the hyenas really love digging dens and living underground, which, well, if these beings are, existing, I mean, the cynocephali, same thing, like the mountains underneath the ground. There's a lot of strange cities and things that, well, we assume they were created by humans and our ancestors. Makes you think, though, if they were potentially maybe created by like the cynocephali or such. And I mean, now that you have these werehyenas, that hyenas already love burrows and underground and cave systems. And, well, if they are intellectual enough to be compared to what we consider as humans intellectual, no reason whatsoever that they couldn't have been, constructing those type of cities and such. And I don't know, man. Again, that's just some more mind-blowing stuff for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have evidence of it, and I'm sure if somebody put the time into it, they could come up with something over there as well. But, every legend and myth has a kernel of truth to it somewhere. The legend's created to explain that moment. So that could be a case where the actual animal's there. Maybe very few, and like you said, living underground. But people aren't talking about it because of the fact that people have already created that legend of what they are, as far as being, transforming, and I don't think the Dogman transforms at all. So it's one of those right up there with, Bigfoot walking out of portals, in my opinion. It's just not happening. I think they're flesh and blood. I think the Dogman's flesh and blood. And the evidence is coming around to prove that. And maybe over there, because there are no wolves and dogs that wear hyenas, or it's been put forth by you yourself, what we're seeing over here could be, some of it could be hyena as well that migrated. But you got to have some way to explain it, so you create the legend. And if it's a popular legend, it takes hold, and that's your whole history. And some people don't let go even when they know the truth, like the Gable film for the Dogman.
Yeah, I still have people still trying to roll with that. And actually, when I put out those videos of fake things, you always have people comment, "Are you sure an opinion doesn't make something fake?" It's like, yes, we're sure. I'm not the one that made the judgment on that. Our science team did the alterations to the photos. Yes, those are all fake photos. And you know what's really interesting, though, man? There are points in time where land bridges did connect continents. And also, what makes any of us think that there couldn't be a cave system that would connect from Africa to North America that would run underneath the ocean? Why would it not? Because, I mean, if Earth is built in layers, which all the scientific evidence explains that it is, and we know there's caves and such, well, just because something's underwater doesn't mean there isn't a cave underneath there. Okay, so you could legit go into a cave system underneath the ocean. As you're swimming around, there's spots that you can come out up in, and it's like what, a mini little island in there. And if you want to really be like, oh wow, there could be some pirate treasure or something, okay, like in a movie. But that also means there has to be underground tunnels that connect from each continent. So again, it doesn't make any sort of sense for people to think that something like the cynocephaly or anything wouldn't travel around like that, or even a known animal. So, I mean, cave bears spent 90% of their time in caves, came out, got their food, went back in. Same thing with cave hyenas and such. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff there, man.
Yeah, it definitely goes down a very deep rabbit hole that seems to have a lot of branches to it, just like the tunnels.
Yeah, I mean, like you said yourself, pretty much in front of our face right there. And, you know, I'm a big person about science and stuff. And there are underground caves, man. There's caves underneath the oceans. Caves run throughout the whole entire planet, okay? Again, there is no reason for one not to be able to connect. I mean, down in Boston, yes, this isn't a cave, but we have a part of the intersection that literally runs underneath Boston Harbor, okay? And it was constructed, but it was also already basically able to be constructed, meaning there was already this natural area that allowed us to make this tunnel system up in there. It's just the way the Earth works, okay? And like Meku, our spelunker from our science team, says, only 10% of caves reconnect to the surface as well. So that means there's a whole world under there. And we know less about caves than we do about outer space and the oceans and all this stuff. So again, you know, I think we really got to look at the caves and such, and what's occurring and what is and could be and what's going on inside of those.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you look at, I believe it's Las Vegas has the most advanced submarine base in the world. Why would you build a submarine base that there's no water by? So, you know, those subs are coming in and out of there somehow. They're not always being flown and trucked. That's a little inconvenient, you know, to try to get a 900-foot submarine out of the water and truck it over to Las Vegas like you're pulling a fifth wheel for a party with mama, you know. So there's caves under and head out to the ocean. That's probably why they picked that spot, was because that's where it was the largest opening. So maybe they had to go in and modify some of it, but they didn't dig it all.
Exactly, man. And that's like up in, I believe it's Montreal. again, they have all these underground areas that we've converted that connect to all these malls, and people can bring in stuff without, necessarily disrupting, like, say, a big outing a store is having. You can bring it in through these tunnels that lead to the back of the stores, etc. They lead to shopping malls and all these other areas. Interesting stuff for sure. And same thing, they were already there. They were just modified to make sense and be able to be a use of, well, something that we humans consider useful. So, I mean, it's pretty interesting stuff for sure, dude. And it again just really ties into all the creepy stuff that's occurring and just the underground aspect. And before we start wrapping this up, my friend, do you have anything else you would like to touch base on or bring up?
Just for everybody to join us over there on the Bigfoot Outlaw Network on Saturday nights at 8:30. Come here, Kenny and I have a little fun. See my mug struggling to get through the podcast, and read comments. And I watched it back for the first time today. It's like, oh man, do I got a lot of work to do. It's like, now I can see why Kenny likes our work.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely something that takes a little bit to get used to, being able to go live. And it's funny because a lot of my other close friends, like Jessica Jones and pretty much anybody else that goes live, doesn't enjoy the editing aspect, because I mean, editing takes work. So they all go live like you do. But my kickback on the live aspects is it takes a lot to get myself all done up, but also I don't enjoy slurring my words or mispronunciating things or saying or anything like that. So I'm able to go back through and cut all that out and seam it together, and then have all this artwork that I do and be able to put it up and actually make use of it. And it's a way to be a little bit different as well. So that's pretty much why I do that too.
Well, that's an awesome way to do it, because like I said, when I'm sitting there, and I hate looking at myself to begin with, so when I'm watching the screen and there's nothing there. So I'm looking everywhere else, and people, there's studies shown that the way it goes is, I believe, I'm wrong on this one way or the other. If you ask somebody a question, and one of the police interrogation methods is they watch your eyes. If you ask somebody a question and they look to, I think it's to the left, they're lying. If they look to the right, they're trying to remember. And there's like a 85% accuracy when on the study they did with this. It was a 3,000 people study.
Bizarre stuff right there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. People see me looking around and they're like, I'm in my head, because I know that stat. It's like, oh, okay, I'm looking this way. They're going to think I'm doing what I'm just trying to sit here and think and not look anywhere but this camera. So that was pretty funny to watch it back for the first time and see things I can improve. So people can come join us and see the improving process, I guess you would say.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I dislike eye contact quite a lot. Not a fan of it. It's just something that makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't enjoy people trying to peer into my soul, is what it seems like. And not my swag. There used to be a girl at the gym. She was cute and such for sure, but would super make me feel uncomfortable. I'd just be having a very shallow based conversation, meaning it's not like I'm diving into the creation of Earth or anything, just pretty much a pretty normal top of the ground conversation. And she would legit just like look into my eyes like she was trying to see everything inside of my soul. And it's like, super uncomfortable. And in general, I'm not really about that anyone. I don't keep direct eye contact with people the whole time. Just something that doesn't make me feel comfortable. So, I mean, yeah, sure. Oh, well, he doesn't make eye contact. Well, could he not be necessarily telling the truth about something? I don't make eye contact with anything. I could be telling you about how I don't like tomatoes, and I'm not going to have eye contact with you. So,
yeah, that's where unfortunately people are making money now on TikTok with in the gym part of it, because they'll be sitting there working out and somebody might be glancing, and they're not. I've been guilty of it myself a lot. Sometimes I got my headphones on, I'm listening to the music, thinking of the music, my eyes are just wandering. And maybe I see a move that somebody's doing that it's like the personal trainer in me's all over it. And it's like, oh man, will you bend those elbows a little more? Why don't you go a little deeper? What's the point? You know, the personal trainer aspect is going off. And the people on TikTok will post that and say that I'm, some kind of creeper and all the other stuff so they can get a few likes, and then they just trash the person in the video because the eye contact was made.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, some people like to look at people and they talk, and I feel like I can have a conversation and don't need to stare somebody in the eyes and can be focusing on something else in front of me while still talking. So, I mean, yeah, it's a catch-22 because I guess some people feel like it's disrespectful, and my response is it's weird as hell. So,
well, exactly. I mean, when I talk to people, and I grew up where you made eye contact, but I was never comfortable with this. As close as I get now, it's about 50% of the conversation I'll make eye contact.
Boom.
Other than that,
Yeah.
for some reason, it's looking just over their right shoulder, so I'm not looking in their eyes.
Yeah, there we go. That's probably pretty much where I'm around too. I always found it weird too when people have to put out their hand and give you a big handshake. It's like, yo, dude, can I have my hand back? And what was the point of just rolling my hand right there? Okay, cool stuff.
Yeah, I get, your macho thing. You got a great grip. Thanks. I'll remember that if I ever need it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
because people would always be like, if someone just gives like a prop real quick, oh, someone could be like, oh, what kind of feeble prop is that? This is how you shake somebody's hand. It's like, get that crap up out of here, man. That's how you shake somebody's hand, dude. That's not my swag. So.
Oh yeah, and the bigger you are, the harder they try to squeeze.
Right, dude. So.
I'm a literal example of it, because when I weighed 165 pounds, nobody squeezed my hand like that. But I see the same friends 10 years later, and now I'm running 250, 255, and it's like they're trying to put my pulse off through my fingers.
Yep, you know how it is, my friend. It's just I guess a difference in more or less opinion and perspective, which is cool because I am totally cool about all that stuff, but a lot of other people can't be cool with somebody else's perspective. So no, it just even ties into all the stuff we deal with here. So great stuff, man. Again, I appreciate you sitting down with us and burning through some of this creepy but important, unique perspective on stuff. I mean, there's so many words that can describe what we spoke about tonight. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. And we're again talking about historical aspects that still are falling into modern day times. So again, I appreciate you and everyone stopping in. And like previously mentioned, if you do want to hear myself and Mr. Barber speak about other things outside of the Dogman topic, well, Stories for Bedtime, 8:30 on Saturdays will be a great spot for you to stop down in and hang out with us because, well, as a journalist, I have on my channel and just in general no time to properly do what I need to do unless it's focusing on the missing people and the strange sightings and the history of the Dogman. Whereas the stuff I'm doing for Stories for Bedtime, to be quite honest with you, I don't even need to do any research for all those things. They're just so embedded in my brain. Like I have yet to do any research about any of the conversations. That's just all stuff I know of, man. So it's great, but it's also, I guess, interesting to try to figure out how my mind works. But like they say, if you want to understand how your mind works, you observe it. And I'm a very photogenic person, and I feel like I can create stuff digitally in my mind and just outlay it all, kind of like if anyone has ever seen the original Resident Evil movie when they do the 3D print of the hive underneath the ground. It's pretty much, I feel like, how my mind works, man. So again, just appreciate you, bro. So
I appreciate you coming on. I really enjoy these conversations because it's nice to be able to bounce out ideas, and the fact that they're historical ideas to things that, like you said, I like to learn. When I I'm talking to somebody. I'm talking with somebody. I'm not talking at them or to them because I'm listening as well to absorb that. So when I get to come on here and learn from you, it's like, oh my God, it's a pleasure and an honor. And maybe one of these days we can get Ryan involved in something.
If you did make it this far tonight, you truly are a legend, and I do adore you. Please like, subscribe, and share my content. Feed the algorithm. And remember, we will catch you very soon.